By my clock, it's 1:03 p.m. So I'm calling the February 7th, 2022 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Ordinance number 20-A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. A quorum is present. Architectural Review Board members present electronically are Frank Hancock, Dave Vanderwerf, Frank Stoner, and myself, Chris Henningsen. Opportunities for public access to this meeting are posted on the county's website at the county calendar. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This online meeting is a public record and subject to a disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Everyone who is participating today, it is good practice to mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Carolyn will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. As far as disclosure, ARB members have anything to disclose?
Yes, I do, Chris. I will need to recuse myself from ARB item 2021-147, the town place initial site plan review.
All right, thank you.
No disclosures for me. Thank you.
None for me either.
So public comment. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review today?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, thank you. And there does not appear to be any consent agenda items today. So for the regular review items, there are 3 regular review items today. Will be presented by Chris Taggart and Margaret Malashevsky from the Planning Division of Community Development. The first item is ARB-2021-104, 490 Westfield Road and Hookaholic Lounge sign. Chris, are you ready to make your presentation?
Yes, Chris.
Thanks.
1 second. Are you viewing the slideshow? The application I'm presenting on is comprehensive sign plan for 490 Westfield Road and a wall sign application for a tenant in this building, Hookaholic Lounge. A certificate of appropriateness was issued for a post and panel sign for Hookaholic Lounge along Westfield Road in 2020. Also in 2020, Segura Solar submitted an application for a wall sign on the east elevation and a refacing of the existing pylon sign. The application for Segura is pending revisions. The wall sign being reviewed today for Hookaholic Lounge on the south elevation generated the need for the comprehensive side plan for this building. The proposal allows for channel letters and cloud cabinets to be attached to the brick walls in 2 locations. On the east elevation, centered over the central arch, and in the center of the south elevation above the 1st story, centered between the 2 middle 2nd story windows. The issue with the location shown on the east elevation, it hides one of the arches and it's not consistent with the location shown in the Segura Solar proposal. And the single location on the south elevation, while it does not conflict with architectural detailing, it also does not provide any framework for possible future signage. Staff recommends revising the loud sign locations as shown on this slide to provide for a unified appearance and a framework for current and future tenants. Regarding the maximum letter height, the recommended side band at the top of the building is 27 inches, meaning the 24-inch max proposed would allow only will allow 1.5 inch space above and below the sign. Based on the Segura Solar proposal, which shows 22-inch tall letters, that do not appear to overcrowd the sign band, reducing the maximum letter height to 22 inches would be appropriate. Regarding the cloud cabinet sign type proposed in the comprehensive sign plan and for Hookaholic Lounge, the sign type does not have the appearance of individual letters, which will not allow the building to read through. Staff recommends limiting the allowed sign type to individual channel letters. The board may also want to consider whether individual non-illuminated letters should be allowed. This would accommodate applicants who are looking for a less expensive alternative. For text color, the comprehensive sign plan proposes 5 colors. Limiting the sign type to channel letters would eliminate black and white, reducing the number of colors to 3, which would be consistent with the sign guidelines. 2 colors are proposed for the return and trim caps, black and white. To provide for increased coordination, staff recommends limiting the color choice to a single color. Bronze would be a color that would be consistent with other signs in the entrance quarter. Staff recommends approval of the comprehensive sign plan with the changes listed in the staff report and changes to the Hookaholic wall sign to be consistent with the approved comprehensive sign plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Frank Hancock, do you have any questions for Chris?
Thanks, Chris. Just to verify, this Segura Solar was just an example used in the staff report of a previous application. Is that correct?
The Segura Solar is a sign application that on the east elevation that's pending. It hasn't been approved yet, so it hasn't been installed, but it will be, or I guess once revisions are submitted, it will be installed on the east elevation of the building.
So really what's before us is just the Hookaholic sign,
Correct.
is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, do you have any questions?
No, thanks, Chris. I don't have any questions.
All right, thanks. Dave, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chris. No questions. Thanks for your report, Chris.
I don't have any questions either. So is the applicant here and ready to make their presentation? So I guess.
Chris, who's your applicant?
Chadi, I believe he's there. He's
Yeah, he's
might be
here.
muted still. Not sure.
Well, I can ask him to unmute, but okay.
Okay.
Do they have a presentation or do they?
Do you have a presentation or?
Actually, I'm just a tenant of the building, so I only went through the application to expedite my sign application. That's all. But I don't have any kind of presentation or anything regarding the CSP.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I guess do any ARB members have any questions for the applicant? Dave?
No, thank you, Chris.
Frank Hancock?
No, no questions.
Frank Stoner?
No questions.
I don't have any questions either. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that want to comment?
No, sir, I don't have anybody with their hand up.
All right, the ARB will now go into discussion. Frank Stoner, do you have any comments?
No, I think what Chris and Margaret have proposed makes sense. I think it's consistent with the ordinance. So yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts or comments.
All right, thank you. Dave?
I agree with Frank. I think Chris and Margaret's recommendations seem consistent with the ordinance and appropriate to the architecture. So support that recommendation.
All right, thank you. Frank Hancock?
I agree with Frank Stoner. I couldn't hear all of what Dade said, but I think I'm in agreement with what he said. Yeah, I appreciate staff's recommendations to kind of striking through and adding the text in red. I think it's very helpful to see. But no, I don't have anything in addition to that.
Yeah, I also don't have any comments. I thought the proposal from staff was pretty reasonable. So do we have a recommended motion?
I've got 2 drafted motions. Are you able to see the Word documents?
Yeah, thank you.
First motion would be regarding the comprehensive sign plan with the revisions noted in the staff report. The second motion would be for the individual, the hookaholic sign.
All right, is anybody willing to make a motion on the first item?
I'll move to approve the comprehensive sign plan for ARB 2021-104, 490 Westfield Road with revisions noted in the staff report.
All right, would
I'll
anybody like
second
to
it.
second? Great. All right, call the vote.
All right. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to move for the second item?
I'll move to
I'll move.
approve the
Yep, go ahead.
hookaholic sign with the following conditions. Number 1, the sign type must be revised to individual letters. And number 2, the sign design must be revised to follow the approved CSP criteria.
All right, can we get a second?
I'll second it.
All right, yes. Carolyn, are you ready to do the vote?
Yes. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, the next item is ARB 2021-147, Town Place Initial Site Plan.
Thanks. I will share my screen. Are you able to see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. This is a proposal to construct a hotel with associated site improvements at the corner of Olympia Drive and Town and Country Lane, the short distance north of Route 250 East in the Pantops area. This is an initial site development plan and a preliminary review of an architectural design. In the staff report, we noted some history related to this item. In 2009 and 2010, the ARB reviewed plans for a Holiday Inn Express to be located at this site. And that proposal was for a 5-story hotel, and the primary material was brick in 2 different colors. Final comments were never addressed by the applicant on that proposal, and that project did not move forward. The Town Place Hotel was reviewed and approved as part of a larger development near Branch Lands on Route 29 North. And sorry, let me make one more adjustment so I can see the rest of my notes. Sorry. That review was in 2016 and 2017, and that plan was approved, but the building was not being constructed. Back in the Pantops area, the ARB reviewed and approved the Pantops Corner Hotel, which is a Holiday Inn Express, and that's near the intersection of routes 20 and 250, and that building has been constructed. And also on Route 250, further east of the parcel we're considering today, and on the other side of the street, the ARB is currently reviewing the Overlook Hotel, and you'll see that later on today's agenda. The site of the current proposal sits lower than the entrance corridor street, so the topography partially mitigates the height of the hotel. Views will also be reduced by the one-story buildings that are already built along the Route 250 frontage, but the hotel will be visible above those buildings, and there will be angled views approaching from both directions, as well as views available further east uphill on Route 250 with a view looking down onto the hotel. The applicant describes the proposed building as a contemporary interpretation of Charlottesville's traditional architectural style, but the building form and style appear to be more of a reflection of current trends in hotel construction rather than the traditional architecture of the area. The butterfly roofs are strong, non-traditional features of the design, and they're shown at the top center of the building, at the primary entrance, and on some drawings, they're shown at the tops of the end wings. There are two details of the proposal that are not consistent with typical practice in the entrance corridors. The proposal includes metal screens at the roof to hide mechanical equipment, and grills below the windows are colored to match the windows rather than the adjacent wall material. The proposed building materials and colors are different than those of the buildings in the immediate area, but materials and colors with closer ties to local historic architecture are available. The topography and site layout result in the need for a long retaining wall at the north and west sides of the parcel, but the wall isn't expected to have a visual impact on the corridor. There are some adjustments required to both the landscape and lighting plans to meet the entrance corridor guidelines, and those are listed in the staff report. Our recommendation is for approval of the initial plan. We've listed a number of comments to be addressed with the final plan. We've recommended that the building forms and materials, the rooftop screens, and the grill panel color as primary points of discussion. I can pull up a more readable version of the recommendations when you're ready for that, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Do any ARB members have any questions for Margaret? Dave?
No, thank you, Margaret, for the presentation.
Frank Stoner?
Just one question regarding those heating and cooling units that are, I think you said colored to match the windows. And I'm wondering if there's a rendered version that we can look at again real quick. That just, I guess some of the, it looked like some of the paneling was white, some is stone.
Yeah, let me pull up an image for you. And I believe white is what is proposed. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see the elevation drawing?
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a little hard to see in this version, but I think the white is the color that's proposed.
Gotcha. Okay. That's my.
All right, thanks. I do not have any questions. Is the applicant here and ready to make a presentation?
This is Neil Bhatt. I'm the architect for the project. Hitesh Patel, who is the applicant, he's actually trying to join. I guess somehow he's having difficulty joining. But I can speak on his behalf while we're waiting for him. I guess our presentation is pretty much what we have submitted, and the staff has commented on our design. So I just want to make a couple of salient points why we have departed from our 2009-2010 design of the Holiday Inn Express, which was approved. At the time, it was basically a traditional brick color, red color, and beige color bricks we had proposed. But obviously, the time has passed from 2009 to 2022. And obviously, the hotel design has changed overall. Hotels are becoming more contemporary. They're no longer traditional in their look all over the country. Even the last hotel which we have got approved in Albemarle County was the Hyatt House at Stonefield, and that was also rendered in more contemporary look to be with the trend of the hotel design currently. So that's one of the reasons why we've changed from the traditional look we had in 2009 and 10 to more contemporary look to this hotel. Secondly, the butterfly roof at the top is a brand signature, and even though we are not following all the brand standards, we want to at least give the signature feature. Now I see the client Hitesh Patel has just joined, so I'll actually let him speak. Hitesh, we just started, and I just explained why we have moved on from 2009, 2010 traditional design to contemporary design. The hotels have become more contemporary in their nature all over the country. But I'll let you make the initial statement, and then I'll go back to any architectural discussion we'll have.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting me participate with this today. We are very excited to be able to finally develop this hotel that we had envisioned to develop back in 2008, 2009. Not that it matters, but if there's one deal that always kind of bugs me to the core, was not building this hotel back then. But needless to say, we're here. But just to preface what Neil had said was, that's the change in 10 years. Even if you look at the Holiday Inn Express, their whole prototype has changed to look like a more modern, contemporary look. And same with Town Place Suites as well. We've had communication with the Marriott folks in the design and construction to obviously get their thoughts on how we can proceed with this to make it work for them and for Albemarle County as well, and make it a project that obviously fits in well with the surrounding. And they pretty much said that they wanted one signature element, which is in our case, the middle of the building, the roof and their signage. And then they said, we could work with trying to make this project fit into the requirements of the county and of the area. That's basically where we're at. Is there anything else that I could maybe help try to shed some light maybe?
All right, well, thank you. Let's see if any ARB members have any questions. Dave, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you very much, Chris.
All right, Frank Stoner, do you have any questions?
No, thanks, Chris.
All right, I don't have any questions either. So
if I could just add something, we, and you can look on our website, we're familiar with going through ARB processes. Primarily in Williamsburg, we're in a historic overlay district. I think with Neil and his firm, we've done, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 hotels in there in a span from like 1998 to 2013. And so as that evolution of the design has changed, we've been able to conform with the requirements. And so that's what we want to do here is we're going to make it a win-win for all parties and make sure that we, at the end of the day, when we walk away from it, everybody's happy to say, yeah, we did what was good for the project and for the county.
I just want to add that this is probably the one project which is least visible from the entrance corridor. Only thing you will see is from the top of the building from Route 250. You see a little bit when you're entering that entry drive, and that's why we have rendered that facade more into stone than in IFAS. And one of the reasons we have been proposing IFAS are obviously two obvious reasons. One is the market has changed, and Mr. Patel wants to make sure that it is within his pro forma and budget. And because the materials are not visible from the entrance corridor, we have thought that it would be appropriate to use IFAS material above the first floor. Mainly, first floor is all basically stone, and secondly, it makes more sense to have IFAS in a contemporary look that we are trying to achieve versus brick, which makes it more traditional.
And just to add to that, I know that IFAS is usually is not the preferred material, but for me personally, we the majority of our buildings are a brick or stone IFAS combination. But what I see with brick is it's good, but then also you like I think it's the Homewood Suites in Charlottesville, beautiful building, but there's a lot of effervescence coming from that brick, and then that poses a challenge. So initially, you go for the look of brick, but then if there's issues with water penetration, then it kind of becomes detracting, and that's just me as a developer. So that's when Neil and I both are big fans of brick. We typically always want to do our buildings in brick, but then we always think about this effervescence issue. If it ever did come up, then you're like, okay, now how does it look? That's just a side note. Not that that's the reason we designed it accordingly. The reason we designed it accordingly was for the reasons that Neil had just expressed.
All right. Thanks a lot. So Carolyn, are there any members of the public who want to comment on this project?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, so the ARB will now go into discussion. Dave, do you have any comments?
Sure, thank you, Chris. So I think the applicant mentioned, and I think the staff report notes that the development is located, a fair amount below the entrance corridor and behind some other buildings. And I think from my perspective, that is a little bit mitigating in terms of how much impact any elements of it will have. I mean, it's certainly going to be visible, but its background. I think from my perspective, I know looking back at the other hotels, Margaret, I appreciate your assembling sort of that catalog of ones we've looked at. I do feel like there's maybe been an effort in many of those applications to reduce the amount of EFS. I certainly understand the technical and the budgetary reasons that it would be attractive for the development. I think if it were possible to reduce somewhat the amount of EFS that's visible, that would be more appropriate from my perspective, and more in keeping with what we've been looking for other hotel developments. I think the butterfly roof, I think I can only think of one other, I think, that has been approved in the county recently, and I agree it is a somewhat contemporary form. I think, I don't know if it would be acceptable to the brand for that to be expressed as a roof edge that was horizontal, that I think would be more in keeping with sort of the traditions of the county, while still, looking and working effectively as a cornice that would provide a good place and location to announce the branding for the facility. But by and large, and let's see, in terms of the other question about the window color and the grill color, I think I would be interested maybe in just seeing a rendered elevation of that. I think in some ways having the grill and the PTAC unit, I guess the same color as the window, may help that opening read as a larger scale in the facade. And so I think in that regard. It's positive, and I don't immediately object to the color. I think perhaps that's actually the right approach, but would just like a little reassurance with a little bit more visual support for that. So sorry, long-winded comment today, Chris. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks a lot. Frank Stoner, do you have any comments?
No, I would echo much of what they just said. I did have, I guess, some lack of clarity with regard to the equipment screening on the roof, and the ways in which that is not consistent with the guidelines. And Margaret, I don't know if you could just comment on that briefly.
Sure. It's more typical to have a parapet, to actually have the building be doing the screening rather than adding adding a screen to do the screening. If that makes sense.
I see. So yeah, typically the parapet wall would hide the equipment, not a separate screen. I understand. Okay. I don't really have a lot of other comments. I do think it has a modest amount of impact on the entrance corridor, given its location. I think the amount of stone is appropriate. I think it's in appropriate locations relative to the visibility from the corridor. I share Dade's concern about the amount of stucco. However, I think on the whole, given the lack of visibility from the entrance corridor, I don't have major concerns about it. And I don't really have a concern about the roof line. I think the Hyatt Place sort of set a precedent. I think we'd have a hard time denying this, given that we've already approved another hotel with a very similar roof line. So all in all, I think it's a nice looking building. Obviously we'll have to go through the list of recommendations in detail, but I don't have any further comments.
All right, thanks a lot. I'm also in agreement with Frank and Dade. I agree that due to the location of the building and the topography, it's less of an impact on the view shed from the corridor. But that leads to my one sticking point, which has been mentioned, which is the equipment on the roof. I think due to the fact that normally with a building of this height, I wouldn't think that was as important what's happening on the roof, just because of the angle that you'd be viewing it from. In this case, I'm not sure that it wouldn't be more visible just due to the fact that the building is at a lower elevation than the corridor. So if there's any way that you could get that equipment behind a parapet rather than screening, I think that would be better. But that's really my only sticking point. So, and as far as the site plan itself too, I'm totally fine with the massing in the building and the location and siting. So for that issue, what we're approving today, I think everything is fine as far as site plan. Margaret, can we look at the recommended motion?
Can you see the Word document?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this is an action on the initial site plan. You're forwarding a recommendation to the agent for the site review committee. So those first three bullets are pretty standard for the initial plans. The first one being recommending approval of the initial plan, and then moving into the list of comments for the final site plan submittal.
All right, does anyone have any suggested edits?
So
Yeah,
guess
I
on
do.
item, oh yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Well, I think 2 is appropriate. I think 3 and 4, in my opinion, should be eliminated.
Consistent with what we just
Yeah.
discussed. Chris, I think your point about the elevation is a good one.
Yeah.
What is your thought about screening and how to address this one? Item 7.
Let's see.
I think item 7 instead.
Yeah, I think if the roof plan showed the location of the roof screens, and maybe a site section would demonstrate that those screens are not going to be visible from the corridor, that would be helpful. Otherwise, or raise the parapet to provide screening.
I think I would be okay with the screen, as long as the screen is tall enough to effectively eliminate the view of the equipment itself. I worry a little bit about just increasing the height of the parapet, because we're just increasing the volume of stucco wall above that top floor. I don't know how far you'd have to raise it in order to fully eliminate the view of the equipment, but that could end up feeling sort of awkward.
Would you like to request the site section and the study showing how tall the parapet would have to be, and that could be included with the next submittal and available for discussion at the next meeting, the next meeting where you'll be reviewing the project?
Yeah, I guess Frank raises a good point. I mean, the equipment must be screened, but the screen doesn't need to be screened. So I guess I'd classify what I said as more of a request or a comment than a requirement, I guess. So I maybe just say consider providing a site section.
Do you want it to be consider providing a site section to clarify visibility of the mechanical equipment and screens?
Let's see. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. All right.
Grill panels, Dave, is that 8? Okay, I thought your comment was appropriate, that the white, the matching, the window color might actually improve the overall look.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe if we change reconsider to just provide a visualization that shows more accurately what's proposed.
So 8 now reads, provide an illustration more accurately showing the color of the grill panels. Sufficient?
That sounds good to me.
So, yeah.
I think all the other comments are standard lighting and landscaping comments.
All right, well, is anyone ready to make a motion?
I will move that we forward the comments for the recommendations outlined in the staff report for ARB 2021-147, town place initial site plan to the agent for site plan for the site review committee, amended as follows. Items 3 and 4 removed. Item 7 is revised to read, revise the roof plan to show the location of roof screens. Consider providing a site section clarifying the visibility of the equipment and the screens. Item 8 is amended to read, provide an illustration more accurately showing the color of the grill panels. And all other comments are as originally written.
Second.
All right, great. I think we're ready for a vote.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye,
Thank you.
thanks. Next item is ARB 2020-117 Overlook Hotel. Chris, are you ready with your
Yes,
press?
first.
Thanks.
Second. All right. The application you're now reviewing is the second review of initial site plan for a 4-story hotel with surface parking surrounding and associated site improvements. Subject property is located on the south side of Route 250, west of the Hanson Road and Route 250 intersection. To give you a quick overview of the project history, in 2019, the ARB did not recommend approval of initial site plan due to the development issues on the site. In November 2021, the ARB provided a similar recommendation on initial site plan, preliminary comments on the architectural design, and did not recommend approval of special exception requests to waive the step back requirement. This January, the Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation of approval of the rezoning and special exception requests to the Board of Supervisors. Regarding the step back requirement, zoning has determined that based on the revised architectural renderings that are being reviewed today that show 3 stories above grade at the Route 250 frontage, a special exception waive the step back requirement is no longer needed. As a result, an ARB recommendation on special exception is no longer needed. While significant revisions to the building design and forms were made to address the special exception issue, they were also needed to establish an appropriate appearance for the entrance corridor. This has been done by adding 2 bays of windows and a canopy over a new patio to the northern tower, which improves the scale and appearance of the form from the entrance corridor. Brick is now being used at the center and intermediate bays in addition to across the base, and the mass of the buildings that are broken down by switching from hip roofs to flat roofs with cornices and bays with alternating heights and materials. Regarding perimeter landscaping, several evergreens and deciduous trees have been added at the base of the lowest retaining wall on the west side of the site and west of the site entrance, respectively. An updated rendering shows off-site vegetation screening the retaining walls along the west side of the site from the entrance corridor, but off-site vegetation cannot be relied on to provide screening, and the added landscape will not sufficiently mitigate the visual impacts. Because the current layout requires off-site easements, additional evergreen trees could be included at the base of the walls to offset the anticipated visual impacts. Staff recommends approval of the initial site plan, with the assumption that the development issues arising from the easements on the site are resolved. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Chris. Frank Hancock, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thanks, Chris.
Frank Stoner?
Did we lose Frank?
Yeah, I don't see him here.
But he's in the attendees. Not sure.
Well, Dave, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chris.
Thanks. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions for Chris?
I don't. Thanks. Glad to be back with you.
And I don't have any questions either. Is the applicant ready?
Yes, we are. Can you
Thanks.
guys hear me all right?
Yep.
And can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Schaefer, and I'm the Charlottesville Studio Director for Design Develop. We're a locally based architecture firm working with the owners to help navigate the Albemarle County entitlement process. I have on the call with me today Kelsey Schlein from Shimp Engineering. Kelsey and her team have been leading a concurrent site plan review and zoning amendment process, and she is available today to answer any landscape questions or site-related questions you may have. Thank you, Chris, for the introduction, for the thorough staff report, and thank you to the board for the feedback at the previous meeting. So with that, I'll jump into the revisions since the previous review by the board in mid-November of last year. At that meeting, we were able to gather a lot of really productive, specific feedback and comments. And we've taken significant steps to revise the project to make it more compatible with these entrance corridor guidelines. A summary of our revisions can be found on your screen now, but I'll be going over the specifics of each revision in the following slides. In general, we had three areas of revision that we wanted to address, those being to revise the architectural design of the building to more appropriately face or address the Route 250 entrance corridor, to revise the architectural design to limit large areas of blankness, and to revise the architectural design to provide a more legible, cohesive whole. A major initiative of the redesign was to raise the grade on the eastern facade to present a less monumental three-story elevation to the entrance corridor. Site walls that were previously facing the entrance corridor have been relegated to behind the building, which creates a higher grade at the eastern elevation, accompanied by lower street-facing retaining walls. So more robust landscaping has been introduced towards this entrance corridor area, which we see on the screen here. And we've taken advantage of this new raised grading area to create an outdoor courtyard to be accessed by hotel guests. That's emphasized and kind of defined by this entry canopy, which now faces the entrance corridor as well. The previous submission, this was the previous submission, this did not do a sufficient job of addressing the Route 250 corridor. And those comments were made by staff and by the board at last submission. There was comments about presenting a monumental face towards the vehicular entrance and it mostly being blank. So the revised design has introduced significant amounts of glazing at the egress stair to engage the entrance corridor. A pedestrian-oriented canopy emphasizes the human scale on the eastern facade while creating a functional patio at grade. The roof forms have been simplified, as Chris mentioned, and we no longer are featuring the branding elements of the mono-pitch bookend roof form. And from this perspective, one can note the additional landscape screening of both the building here at that courtyard and also the retaining walls here up front. This slide shows the extensive amount of additional landscaping that's been added since the previous submission. This landscaping includes new interior parking lot trees to meet the needs of the entrance corridor guidelines, but also additional screening at the main vehicular entrance here and here at that retaining wall. The introduction of this landscaping was to address a comment from the board at the previous meeting that was evident on this slide. This showed a highly visible building and retaining wall. Upon closer examination of this rendering, the photo match is a little bit disingenuous to what may be actually visible, but still it was a valuable comment from the board and one that was echoed by Planning Commission in their review of the zoning amendment to include more landscaping towards the front of the site. So in response, this image shows more correctly the existing trees that are to remain. And while highlighting the new plants that are occurring at the vehicular entrance here, as well as the additional landscaping in the background as well. This view from the entrance corridor also shows how the structure places more emphasis on addressing the Route 250 elevation rather than addressing the northern facade at the parking lot interior. As seen in this slide, vertical brick forms, vertical brick towers have been introduced, as Chris mentioned. As well as the central gable element has gone to brick, and these bookend tower elements at the egress stairs are now all brick, which were formerly the lap siding. Finally, we've also introduced eave space to flank each of these brick tower elements to provide a variety of materials to further break down the massing, to accentuate the building forms. And as Chris mentioned, we've stepped the eave lines to get a little bit of variation away from the hipped roof, the long hipped roof line. As mentioned, a significant amount of additional glazing has been introduced at the egress stair to bring transparency and life towards the entrance corridor. The grading has been significantly revised in this area, and you can see now we're presenting a 3-story elevation here, and a new pedestrian-oriented canopy is also visible here. This pedestrian-oriented canopy element has been redesigned to eliminate the exposed wood beams as well as the gable roof form. On the main building, we've eliminated the hipped roof forms, and they've been revised to incorporate the flat roof forms, as Chris mentioned. These simple building forms have been enriched with a soldier course banding at each floor level and soldier course headers above each window. A full-size brick will still be utilized at the project base, which will create a water table here before transitioning to a thin brick application above the first floor. The previous design garnered comments from the board on the large expanses of lap siding and areas of blankness. And so this rendering of the front elevation shows the considerable differences between the two submissions to address that comment from the board. The rhythm of the brick tower elements flanked by the eave swings provides almost the scale and proportion of an urban townhouse development. The spacing of the window bays has been varied as well to provide more dynamic proportion at each building form. This view from the rear parking lot shows the appropriateness of the scale, even at 4 stories, while also highlighting the additional landscape screening that occurs adjacent to this rear pedestrian walkway. And so to summarize, we greatly appreciate the specific feedback and comments we received from the board and county staff at the previous hearing. It's through this design process that we believe projects improve and become more appropriate, not only per the entrance corridor design guidelines, but also as the physical built environment of our community. So we appreciate the ownership team for giving the design team the freedom to revise and adjust the building. And we think we'd all agree the project is much more successful and welcoming. And we laud the county staff for their dedication to the process. And with that, we're eager to gather more feedback, answer any questions you may have for the design team during this preliminary submission review. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Let's see if there are any questions. Dave, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Just one. I think appreciate very much, Kevin, the incorporation of the feedback from staff and the board, and like the improvements. you mentioned sort of a townhouse development and the rhythm of it. And certainly the roof form has that. To my eye, I guess the gable in some ways is an interruption to that. Have you considered whether you still need the gable in the current
Yeah,
design?
we did. We looked at a flat roof there as well as the gable. And we sent both options to the client, discussed it with Kelsey and the team at Shimp Engineering as well. And in the end, it felt like maybe one too many flat roofs that stepped, and the gable performed the service of providing a little bit of hierarchy and a little bit of direction, as well as kind of anchoring that center mass that then gives an opportunity for the symmetry on either side. So it's something we explored, but we'd be happy to continue to explore.
Thank you. No other questions?
Frank?
Bruce?
Great. Frank Hancock, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Kevin.
Frank Stoner?
Thanks, Kevin. A great presentation and a vast improvement in the look and feel of the building. My only question is, what material are you envisioning for the two canopies, the front entry canopy and that side canopy? It looks like it's all black, effectively. What are the columns made of, and how are those canopies detailed?
Yeah, it's a good question. We were kind of riffing off the eave line from the flat roof forms, where we would anticipate either a brake metal around the eave line to establish this roof line here, and then echoing that through there. But then that amount of brake metal on those columns could be challenging. So it's still a question to be answered. From a detail perspective, it could be a smooth composite board as well, but something that certainly riffs off the eave line that's happening up on the roof form.
Gotcha. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any questions either. So Carolyn, are there any members of the public that would like to comment?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, thanks a lot. The ARB will now go into discussion. Frank Stoner, do you have any comments?
Yeah, again, just want to echo what I said before. I think this is a vast improvement over the original submission. Kevin, thanks for you all's work. I don't really, I mean, it's a very difficult site. So I think site retaining walls, all that, concerns over that, I think, are largely mitigated by the amount of existing vegetation that's going to remain on the northwest side. So I don't have any other concerns or questions. Thanks again.
All right, thanks. Dave, do you have any comments?
I'll just echo Frank's and compliment the team for really improving the design. Appreciate all the effort that went into that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Frank Hancock.
I agree with my fellow board members and want to thank the applicant for a great response. Very thoughtful package and very thoughtful responses to the questions today. And agree, it's a nice facade that's presented to the entrance corridor now. I think you've done a great job, so thank you.
Thanks, and I'm in total agreement with everyone. I think you guys did a really great job making lemonade from the lemons that you got last time. I think seems like you really took the comments to heart, and it's just a great improvement. So if we could look at the recommended motion.
Are you able to see the Word documents?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this is another initial site plan. The recommendation is for to recommend approval of the initial plan. Standard condition about maintaining grading outside drip lines of trees to remain, and then the list of comments to be addressed with the final submittal.
Right, does anybody have any modifications?
I guess one
The only
question-
suggestion I might offer, and it may not be an issue because it's far enough away from the entrance corridor, but that the portico or the porch to the corridor side there, again, to Kevin's point, they haven't quite figured out what those columns are. Might be helpful to know. I think, yeah, if that's all done in brake metal, it probably is not going to feel great. I'm sure that's not what they'll end up with, but
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a good observation, and I was so happy to see the other changes. I didn't really think about what material would be there. Any other comments or additions? Yes, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll be happy to move to forward the recommendations outlined in the ARB 2021-117 site plan as follows. And that would be as originally written, with the addition of one item for the final site plan submittal. Item 8, provide a detail of the porch on the EC side of the building.
All right, thank you. Would anybody like to second that?
I'll second.
All right, we can put it to a vote.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate
Thank
the
you.
feedback.
All right, so we do not have any work sessions today. So on to other business. Would anyone care to move to adopt the January 18th, 2021 ARB minutes?
I would be pleased to move. I have one small amendment to them. I think the draft I saw stated that we adjourned at 1 p.m. And I remember it was probably the fastest ARB meeting on record, but I don't think we quite did it that quickly.
We'll correct the time.
I think it was 103.
That's right. So, but want to move with that revision for approval.
All right, would anybody like to second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. So if we could put it to a vote.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. So the next meeting, there are no regular review items scheduled for the February 21st ARB meetings. That meeting can be canceled, with the next meeting to be held on March 7th, 2022. Is anyone expected to not be available for the March 7th meeting? All right, great. So I'll see everybody on March 7th. Same
Chris,
time,
if I may ask
same
one,
channel.
Yeah,
Nope.
thank you very much.
It
Chris. One
is,
question. Oh, I'm very sorry. I was just interested to ask Margaret if any applications have been received for the open seat.
I don't get notified of those. At last week's Board of Supervisors meeting, several committee and board positions were filled, but none were for the ARB. I think there's another board meeting scheduled for next week. That would be the earliest we could get additional information.
One other quick question. Margaret, last time we discussed what happens, since there are only 4 of us, what happens if 2 of us have to recuse ourselves?
Yep.
And you were gonna look into.
I did, yes, and I confirmed with the county attorney's office. If we start the meeting with a quorum and 1 or more members have to recuse themselves from a particular item due to a conflict of interest, we can continue to review that particular item, even if those numbers get reduced.
Okay. So
I
you
guess,
could have a
Margaret,
vote
that would
with
continue
2.
even to just 1 if 3 out of 4 were recused.
I didn't ask that particular, I'm hoping that we don't get to that point.
I hope not. Okay.
Yeah, I guess that would be, even at 2, it feels a little dicey, but.
I think we've
Yeah.
one instance where we have been down to 2 and the review continued and we were able to take action. So it doesn't
Okay.
happen very often. Hopefully we'll get that position filled. So we'll be have a little more flexibility.
I am aware of 1 application, but I'm sure there are others.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
it's 2:10 p.m. So we will adjourn until March 7th.
Thank you all.
Right.